do have this microphone on. I'm trying to get Emery onto Zoom.
Yeah.
So Zoom is recording, just so y'all know.
Just have that.
No, in all fairness, I'll tell whoever comes in.
Not bad.
I don't want people caught off guard. Herman, microphone is on, we're recording Zoom on. They think I was singling them out. to let them know.
Oh, gosh.
We had to get Emery signed in.
I like that.
He is.
Just want to make sure we're good.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
So, thanks for thanks this morning.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I've been playing with cupcakes. Thank you.
You bet.
You get that back to Publix?
The cookies are from Great American. Cookie Company, and the cupcakes were from Publix.
Good.
Oh, nobody judges. At those events, calories don't count and there's no judging.
That's right. That's
So
it.
I thought it was cute. I saw Will Wade leaving with like 6 cupcakes. I thought that was adorable.
Be so upset about being standing there.
Oh, me too. Hey, how are you? Okay, I've got Zoom up, so I didn't know if you were able to, there's 2 links. There's one for the work session and one for the voting session. Okay. No, not for the voting session. You need to- Okay, yeah. And then obviously in between the 2, we'll have to do this whole thing again to get onto the voting session. How are you feeling? I would download the Zoom app if it's giving you that option. And I do have your microphone, so I can. I'm trying to get
Okay.
Emery on. So, and we are recording. on it. That's what she did. They thought I was singling them out. I said, no, I'll tell everybody that comes in.
We're recording.
I don't want anybody caught up. Well, just, yes, but we can turn the microphone off once I get him set up. We can turn it off. And I just have a screensaver up that just says Board of Commissioners work session, so. you can see it. Oh, there's Emery. Can you hear us? Okay, so no, we cannot. Yes, we can. Okay. no.
All right. Can y'all hear me now? Okay.
So I'm gonna- so it doesn't-
Okay.
Okay. During the meeting, you will not cameras in here. So the only people that will be able to see you is anybody that's going to be watching on Facebook or on Zoom.
Okay.
Don't want your camera on, you don't have to have it on.
Okay. I may not then.
But you won't be in here because we'd have to run solstice the whole time. And that would interfere with Kristen's side for voting and
Right.
so that's totally your call if you want to be on for your camera, or you can shut the camera off.
Okay.
So whichever one you prefer.
Right.
And then I would say during the meeting, if you want to ask questions, I think it's best if we kind of give him a second to speak up. There's a little bit of a delay. So if you do have a question or if you want to make a comment, we'll just make sure to have a little pause there.
Okay.
Or Chairman, you might want to just ask him if he's got anything, or,
Chime in.
yeah, just chime in if you want
Go
to.
off mute and ask.
Yeah. And then I would say otherwise, if we leave yours muted, unless you are speaking, it won't toggle between you and the video each time. It'll only toggle if you actually speak.
Okay. And that's whatever y'all think will be fine.
I say just chime in if you've got.
Yeah.
If you want
Unmute
to.
yourself and ask the question.
Yeah, just unmute and talk away, and if somebody else is speaking, they'll stop.
All right. That'll be fine.
You'll be able to hear them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you can hear them just like you hear me. Actually, probably a little bit better because their microphones are closer. But otherwise, we should be good to go.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I was trying to figure out how do I mute myself on here?
So there should be, if you, well, I'm looking at it on a computer, but down at like if you kind of touch the screen down on the left-hand corner.
There it goes. Yeah. That's what I was trying. I've never done it on my iPad before. I couldn't get the menu to figure out how to get the menu to come up. But yeah, I've got it now.
Okay.
Uh,
Can you hear him?
Yeah.
Down there?
Wait, I hear that.
Uh-oh. Okay, he turned his camera off. Okay.
yeah, I just see if I was turning my camera off. If they can't nobody see me there at the meeting, I'll probably just leave it off anyway. So
Okay, that works. And just at
um,
the screen, it will just say that you're talking. So that works. That's perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I appreciate you setting it up for me.
You are welcome. So I'm going to turn the microphone off in here.
Okay.
So, but that was also my cell phone number. So if anything happens during the meeting, if you need to text me or anything, we can chat that way as well.
Okay. All right. That'll be fine.
Perfect. And we'll talk to you just a little bit.
All right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead and turn on microphones. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Dawson County Board of Commissioners work session. Today is Thursday, April the 1st. Commissioner Dooley is online with us. He was unable to attend in person, but he is online with us as well. So he will be participating. We'll get right into the new business. First up, we have presentation of Family Connection request to apply for Departmental of Behavior, Health and Development Disabilities Partners and Prevention Project Grant. Family Connection Coordinator Rebecca Bliss. Rebecca. And if you will, turn that microphone on when you get up to it, please. Hit speak. There you go. It'll light up. There you go.
All right. Hello, how are y'all doing? Y'all gave me 15 minutes of fame last time I was here, and now I'm all hooked to the microphone. My name is Rebecca Bliss. I'm the new coordinator for Dawson County Family Connection. I'm pleased to be here. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to present the Partners in Prevention Project grant that we're hoping to apply for. We hope at the end of the presentation that you're as excited about the opportunity as we are. To give you guys a little background, for the last 10 years, Family Connection has been funded by DBHDD to implement an underage drinking prevention strategy in Dawson County. In 2011 to 2016, DBHDD awarded Family Connection $121,577 a year in unmatched funds to implement an underage drinking prevention strategy in Dawson County. We did that by implementing a positive social norms campaign in our community and in our schools. We hope that you have seen our underage drinking prevention billboards and our signs and everything at Park and Rec. We have also implemented Too Good for Drugs curriculum in our junior high system, and we've been doing that for about 8 years now. We also helped pass and promote the Dawson County Social Host Ordinance, and that ordinance holds those that are responsible for providing a location for underage drinking responsible for that drinking, even if they are not at the location. But it just holds our community a little more credible for preventing our youth from engaging in underage drinking. That grant finished in 2016, and DBHDD rolled out a follow-up grant. They called it the ASAP, which is the Alcohol Substance Abuse Prevention Project. It was basically the same structure as the app grant, but they asked us to also focus on tobacco and vaping. We were awarded that grant, and for the past 5 years, we have received $147,793 a year in unmatched funds from DBHDD. That grant will be ending on September 30th. We had complete hopes and aspirations that DBHDD would roll out a follow-up grant like they had in the past. Our thoughts were that they would have us address underage drinking, tobacco and vaping, and a third substance, dependent on what was pertinent to our county. The beginning of March, they did roll out a grant, this Partners in Prevention Project grant, and it was a little different than what we were expecting. So the Partners in Prevention grant is basically the same as the ASAP grant, and that DBHDD wants people that are experienced in implementing this underage drinking prevention to their community, but they only want it implemented in counties that they consider high risk. Good news is Dawson County is no longer considered high risk for underage drinking prevention. So we were presented with two possibilities. We either apply for this grant or we don't apply for this grant. If we do not apply for this grant, there's two obstacles that Family Connection has to overcome. The first obstacle is that we will be losing an opportunity to present an underage drinking prevention strategy to Dawson County. Even though we're not listed as high risk, we are, and we're no longer trending in the red, we are still trending in the yellow, and we're afraid that if we just completely stop giving a message to our children, that we might fall back down into the red again. The second obstacle is the funding. So ASAP currently funds about 55, or brings in about 55% of the revenue for Dawson County Family Connection. These funds fully fund our prevention specialist position. And our prevention specialist position is primarily responsible for implementing that grant. But she also has daily duties in our office. She answers calls for the community that whenever they need help. She has monthly duties for our community collaborative. She has bi-monthly duties in our board. And she has yearly duties with all of our events, such as the Teen Maze, which is predominantly her event, our Celebrity Waiter, our Steph the Bus, and our poverty simulation. She's a very integral part of our team. Also, we would lose funding, which partially funds the coordinator position. And we would also lose, that funding is used for about half of our regular operating expenses and Family Connection. So those are the obstacles that we face if we do not apply for the Partners in Prevention grant. So we started looking at what is the viability of this grant. Is this something that we can do? So we looked to see there are 40 counties that are listed as high-risk counties according to DBHDD. How they came up with this list, we don't know. But we started to look to see if there was a county in which we can implement something that we're good at, that we have been successful at, that Dawson County could benefit from. And we found Lumpkin County. Lumpkin County is one of the counties that is listed. According to Kids Count, Lumpkin County is the second most comparable county in Georgia to Dawson County, I'm sorry. So we started thinking, we share a border with Lumpkin County. We share school functions with Lumpkin County, park and rec functions. A lot of the people that live in Lumpkin County, they work, play, shop in Dawson County and vice versa. We have a lot of the same mentalities. We celebrate moonshine, they celebrate wine. There was a lot of commonalities that we felt that our strategy that we implement here would translate very well to Lumpkin County. If it had been some of the other counties that are available, like Fulton, we just don't share a lot of those commonalities, and things that were successful here probably wouldn't be successful there, but we feel very confident that with Lumpkin that it will be. So we started reaching out to Lumpkin County to see if this was something that they were on board with. And my first step was to contact the coordinator at the Family Connection up there. And she is completely on board. Their numbers are in the red. She does see that it's a need. She just can't implement this herself. She's got a lot of things going on. But thanks to her and thanks for our work, we already have letters of support from the Lumpkin County Sheriff, the Lumpkin County Superintendent, and of course, the Family Connection Coordinator. So we're excited about doing it. Lumpkin County is excited about us doing it too. So the conclusion that we came up with is that DBHCD is looking for experienced underage drinking prevention providers to implement this grant. And we can do it, and we're excited about doing it. We understand that Dawson County won't reap the direct benefits of that underage drinking message to our students, but we do believe that the overlap of the populations and just the way our dynamics are, I do think that Dawson County would reap some of the peripheral benefits of that message. Directly, we would benefit from the funding. We would be able to keep this, our prevention specialist position. We're a three-man team over at Family Connection, and she's a very integral part of our team. Directly, we would benefit from the funding that Dawson County Family Connection would be able to run efficiently and effectively, and we would be able to implement our other strategies to Dawson County families and children, which include improving family stability and improving mental awareness in Dawson County. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. Not often do you come up to with an opportunity to apply for funds that are unmatched. We are not asking for any matching, to do something that you are good at in which our county will benefit from, and we're excited to do it. So once again, I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to have.
Questions for Ms. Bliss? It's my understanding that Lumpkin, due to the fact that they don't feel like they could do this program, are not going to apply.
They are not going to apply. One of the processes of doing this application, you have to get in contact with an evaluator and they have to come up with a couple of plans. The evaluator that we use also is the evaluator for a lot of the people in our region, and she has not let us know that there's anybody else applying for this. We do expect that there is one group, Hearts of Families, that likes to apply for grants like this. They're more region oriented, but the counties that are listed as high risk, there's Lumpkin, there's Chattooga and Habersham, and there's a large cluster of counties that are all grouped together close to South Carolina that Hearts and Family works out of. So we think that they're our biggest contenders, but we really think that they're probably going to focus on that region over there.
Other questions?
Well, will Dawson County get the money, but then spend it for Lumpkin?
Correct. So Dawson County, the way we work now is the prevention specialist position doesn't cost the county any money. The grant, even though y'all are our fiscal agent and she looks like a county employee, the grant reimburses the county for all of her expenses and all of our expenses and implementation of our grant. So yes, the money would come into, we work on a reimbursal type grant. So whatever our expenditures were, we would present a report to DBHCD, and DBHCD would then pay ultimately you guys back because y'all pay our bills. So yes, it would be a grant that Dawson County would be receiving the money, and yes, we would be implementing this plan in Lumpkin County.
This is one of those deals where they've done such a good job.
I know,
But
we're
we
not
fell
high
out of-
risk anymore.
We fell out of being high risk, but as she said, I do have concerns that if nothing's done, that we'll fall back into high risk.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Would you still be doing something? You would still be doing some of that in Dawson County?
If we don't have to allocate funds that we have set aside for substance abuse, because we do have smaller funds right now for substance abuse. If we don't have to allocate those funds, reallocate those funds towards general operating expenses and salary and stuff like that, we will have enough funds in order to implement something in Dawson County to go with it.
Mhm.
So by receiving this grant, we wouldn't have to reallocate those funds, and we would have funds available for substance abuse prevention in Dawson County.
And this is okay with the powers that be?
Y'all are the last powers that be. That we
Oh,
have to
but
bring.
I was meaning this DB, BHH, whatever it was.
DBHCD, yeah, DBHCD opened this up to any provider that had already implemented this plan for the last 2 years and felt that they could implement this plan in another county. Basically, they want
Okay.
somebody that can hit the ground running. I've already contacted Georgia Family Connection to make sure that this wasn't anything that I was crossing territories. And she
Yeah,
said as
that's-
long as I had gotten in contact with the Lumpkin County Family Connection and she was on board with it, I
Mhm.
would be fine. It's been presented to our board at Family Connection and they are on board with it as well. So ask God the other day if he was on board with it, and I think he's on board. So.
Now, did I read you needed a decision tonight?
Yes, ma'am, this application is due on the 9th. Yeah.
Is it, so it's just a 12-month funding? I mean, the grant.
No, this is a 5-year grant.
5-year grant. 5-year.
Was the other one 5? Did you say it was
All of
5
them
or
have been
10?
5-year grants. This grant will be for $160,500 a year for 5 years unmatched funds.
And the message is the same for the 5. I mean, you gotta, with kids, to get information into their noodles, you gotta
Yes,
just
you
continue
gotta-
to
you
beat
gotta
it into
repeat-
them.
You gotta be
So-
repetitive. We feel that the good thing about what we're doing and where we're wanting to do it is we believe that most of the messages and most of the strategies that we have done are going to translate very well when we move over to Lumpkin County. So it will be many of the same messages that we have found effective here, but they'll just be Lumpkin County related. So instead of having Dawson County numbers, it will have Lumpkin County numbers. Instead of having our good maroon and gold, it will have Lumpkin Indians on it. So
How much did you say? 160 what?
$160,500 per year for 5 years.
do you think your chances are good getting this since you've done so well?
I feel very confident that we have a very good chance if it was down to us, and even like I said, Hearts and Families, I think because of the fact that we there are so many commonalities between us, and the fact that we already have the sheriff's department and the superintendent on board, both of which are usually the biggest people that you collaborate with in order to present this initiative to somebody. I think because we have those two already on board, I think we have a very good chance.
What's the cost of keeping it here?
What's the cost of,
If we wanted to, I mean, what's the number that would,
if we do not have the Partners in Prevention Act and we want to keep things as status quo, we would have to come up with approximately $41,000 to keep our prevention specialist. We would have to come up with approximately, and this is also based on funding for my grant. The Dawson County Family Connection Coordinator is funded by a completely different grant, and it goes up and down for years. But at the moment, we would have to come up with about $10,000 to keep the Family Connection Coordinator, and we would have to come up with about $4,500 worth of regular operating expenses. So if we do not get the grant, those are the expenses that Family Connection would have to come up with to keep things as status quo.
so that money would, so you could run it in both counties, Lumpkin and Dawson? Or if you got the grant for the Lumpkin, but we want to keep some kind of program going. I mean, I think if you got that program up to a certain point, if you just do away with it, we're going to be back in the red. That's just my thought.
We
on it.
have approximately, and I wish that I had looked at these numbers closely. We have funds that are set aside that we had when this became an emerging project, and when we had CAPA in Dawson County, we had funds that were set aside for both of those programs. Both of those programs kind of got put on the back burner when we got the ASAP grant. There was no reason to spend our money that we already had on substance abuse and prevention when we were receiving funds from DBHDD. So we do have funds to implement at least the positive social norms campaign in Dawson County. So we would be able to keep some of the messages up throughout the community and throughout the schools. I would have to look into, there's a possibility that the Too Good for Drugs program that we have implemented, the school might keep, so they might absorb that cost. And the social host ordinance is already in place. So all we would be doing is promoting that. So there's a possibility, we might not be able to implement it to the full extent that we are now. But most of the fundamentals we would be able to implement. We just wouldn't be able to pay the salaries for both of the prevention specialists and the coordinators work.
And when do y'all check your numbers as far as your numbers? I mean, what you're seeing, your trends, or if it's going up or down?
Are you talking about our data? Our data
Data.
is usually updated once a year. So right now we have data for 2020. And there's several different indicators. And if you need to know about those indicators, I have the prevention specialist here with me. But most of the indicators that we look at are things like binge drinking, age of onset for drinking. And those numbers, while they were in the red, and when I say red, it just means that it's significantly different than the Georgia average. And those numbers are now trending in the yellow. So we are still not as good as the Georgia average, but we have made an improvement.
The thought of just, I mean, from a grant perspective, it almost seems like if you could say that this is the geographic area which would encompass both counties, then they may be.
We
more
would
open
love
to
to, they had a question and answer where we had to submit our questions, and we specifically asked if we would be able to implement anything in Dawson County. And they were adamant that you were only to implement with their funding in a high-risk county.
Gotcha. Okay.
Other questions? Sir.
Thank you. So this is no reason not to move forward with the grant, but I anticipate that if the grant is awarded, it will make sense to have a short intergovernmental agreement with Lumpkin County and this board authorizing us to fund services across county lines. And it may even be a requirement of the DBHDD before they give you the money. Just want to flag that as a future to do.
I don't foresee any problems with doing that, and I don't know that DBHCD has made that requirement. I mean, they opened this up to any county. You can pick any county that you want, but it might be something that when we get into it, that they do require, and we appreciate the heads up on that, and that's something that we'll look into.
All right, you said the deadline was the 9th.
Yes, ma'am.
So when would you know the answer to if you're going
I
to?
believe it's May the 10th. We will find out if we are awarded.
Okay,
May 28th.
May 20th.
And that, so our ASAP grant that we are being awarded right now, that would end on September the 30th. And the Prevention and Partners grant would begin October 1st.
So
Okay.
in reference to what Tim and Chris both said, before the budget cycle, then we'll know if they're going to be
Mhm.
awarded that grant or not, if we want to take a serious look at continuation of making sure that we don't get back into the red.
Mhm.
I might look at that.
Okay? Other questions? Y'all good with moving that to the voting session?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next up, presentation of paramedic pay adjustment, educational incentive, emergency service director, Danny Thompson. Danny.
To you all today is kind of a two-pronged approach. It's part retention and part recruitment. Some of that recruitment is from the outside and some of that recruitment is going to be from the inside. So as you know, we currently operate in Dawson County 3 full-time advanced life support med units, and we also have 2 advanced life support engine companies. One of those engine companies is what we refer to as a swing company. So they have a reserved med unit housed in that same station. So if there's a med call in their specific geographical area, they actually take the med unit and shut the engine down. And with our current staffing vacancies, we're not able to staff that engine as of right now. So kind of talking about some of these staffing vacancies and where we're at. As you can see, just in the last few months, we've lost several paramedics and losing paramedics with experience, which is problematic for us because that experience is very, very difficult for us to be able to replace. Currently, we still have 3, or should I say 6 full-time and 6 part-time paramedic positions that are open. We've been advertising for over 3 years, full-time firefighter paramedics. That advertising has been continuous and open until filled, and we have never filled it. Going back to previous administrations before me. So far in the last 6 months, we've tendered 1 full-time application for firefighter paramedic. So if we lost no more for the course of the year, we just lost 3 and we hired 1 and we continue this, it's kind of a vicious cycle that we continue in. So again, that's kind of why we're here today. The next part I want to talk about though is before someone ever becomes a firefighter paramedic to us in the field, we have an investment in that employee. Before they hit the door, we probably have $12,000 invested in that employee through background checks, drug screens, the time that HR puts into it, the time personnel are interviewing, uniforms, the gear. And then when we finally get them started and they get a start date, they have several weeks of field training. And so we have that field training officer who has their salary for training them on the fire side, for training them and making sure that their EMS skills are up to par where we need to be. So right out of the bat, we got $12,000 invested in these employees. So there's a lot of money in it. So what I'm presenting to the board today is a plan to, as I said, address the retention and recruitment of firefighter paramedics here in Dawson County. I'm asking the board to approve in the amount of $15,000. This funding will be added to our EMS training budget. And by doing so, we'll be able to offer candidates within our department who wish to attend paramedic school and be able to offset some of these costs. Current paramedic school costs anywhere from $4,000 as high as $8,000. They last anywhere from a year-long program to a year-and-a-half long program. One of the issues that we have is the current county tuition reimbursement doesn't allow our employees to be able to access that funding because most of these paramedic programs are not affiliated with the university system. They're through technical schools or they're through various private companies that teach paramedic programs. So that's something that we have to contend with. Those who wish to attend and seek such funding will be asked to sign a 2-year contract. We've worked extensively with Gerard Davis to hammer out a contract. This is not an uncommon process for fire departments around the area to be able to retain those employees. Benefits by sending them to school, helping pay for some of the schooling, but also you get to keep them for a little bit. And so in that, we'll have a 2-year contract that should they leave during that time period, they will pay that back and it will be prorated based upon, if we issued the $5,000 to employee A and he or she stayed 1 year, then they would be required to pay the county back $2,500 of that funding upon their leaving. And again, what does this enable us to do? This enables us to be able to kind of grow those employees from within. We have a lot of employees that have been with the organization that want to go to paramedic school, just can't afford it. And so this is an opportunity for us to take people who are already working for us, be able to provide them some tuition assistance, and then grow medics from within our own department. So that's kind of the recruitment aspect of it.
Let's stop right there for just a second before you get on to the second part, kind of get into this part here. Chief Thompson and I had discussion in reference to some of this as well. And one of the things too, to make that money go even further, if that be the desire of the board, is that, we would work with them on trying to get some HOPE funding as well, because you can get some HOPE funding for technical school application, as you well know. And so hopefully, instead of $15,000 doing 3 people, we can make $15,000 do 6 people. Because it's very obvious that we're not getting flooded at the door from outside with applications. So we got to try to do some way, and we discussed this about trying to grow from within. And we used to do that. County used to help years ago, people go to paramedic school. I'm an example of going to paramedic school when I worked for the county. County helped me go there. Obviously, they benefited greatly from that because I did it for 35 years. Didn't go anywhere. And so we hope to grow, and I know it's Chief Thompson's goal, to grow those same kind of people to be dedicated and stay here long-term. And with this board's help, we've made some great strides in things like retirement and stuff that will help do that. So just wanted to bring that up in reference to, there are other avenues to help with us, maybe get even more people certified, because as he said, he's got 6 or 7 opens. He's had those for years going back to my administration. It's just hard to fill. And even though this board and previous boards have done numerous things with different pay grades and different studies and different things but once we do one of those, guess what? Everybody else does the same thing. It puts us back in the same boat. And I think Chief Thompson can speak to this as well as Commissioner Satterfield. One of our biggest challenges are hospitals and things like that, because I spoke with one of our long time paramedics the other day at Walmart. I didn't realize that he had left us recently. He'd been with us for years. But, he went to the hospital. They're paying, good money at the ER for these people's talents, and they have lots of talents, same as a nurse. And, you know, it's not cold in the ER. It's not hot in the ER. It's not wet in the ER. They're not climbing up and down a bank. They're not in a car getting jabbed by jagged metal. So, and they're only doing one job at the ER. They're not doing two like they're doing here. So hopefully this is a way, if approved by this board, to help with retention in reference to growing from within. Anybody else got any questions in reference to that part that he's talking about?
Oh, I was wondering how you talked about it would be prorated, you know, if they didn't stay. It'd be such, we got anything with teeth in it that would, I mean, you know, they could walk off and say, I'm not paying that. What are you talking about? I'm not paying anything back.
Well, obviously, I mean, that's
So-
something that we discussed with the attorneys. And like I said, I worked with Jeff. He was able to, I think that the firm has actually done this for Barrow County. And one of the things that's inside that contract is also accessing the HOPE. But again, we do have some mechanisms to be able to hold their feet to the fire. The sheriff's office has long done this. If they send a deputy to mandate school and they leave the sheriff's office, they have the ability to pass that, you know, to receive that funding that they sent that deputy back to and collect it. So this practice is not uncommon. It's just something that we're not currently doing here in Dawson County.
I just want to be able to, you know, stick to it.
Well, you could probably structure it potentially like a loan, you know, just like you go buy a car, you know,
Yeah.
and then you have a loan document, legal document that
Yeah,
they
I'll
would sign.
pass this
committed
around. This
to
is the
funding or something, maybe.
this is the contract
Yeah.
that
It's in our package.
It's in the packet, I think.
It's in the package.
is in.
Is it? Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Sam may want to speak to that a little.
Well, I will say I have seen several of these in different localities, and this contract appears to be pretty standard. I mean, it is a contract. If you go to another Georgia county or city, you're not going to run away from this contract. If you go to, you know, China, maybe you will, but what are the odds of that?
Mhm.
So I'm pretty confident it can be enforced.
And one of the things, and I know Chief Thompson's seen this as well, a lot of times, if that county understands that they have that contract, they themselves will pay that county back. If they truly want that employee that bad, they will pay the debt back to the county themselves.
Or
called a
recruitment.
buyout, called a buyout.
Yeah.
Buyout.
They'll do it themselves. Any other questions in reference to that?
All right,
Go
so
ahead.
talking about retention, obviously you've heard me talk about losing employees to other agencies, and I think it's been mentioned, you know, sometimes we're chasing each other. This is a national issue, but you're in it at a local level because we are in a very competitive market out there, and like I said, to be able to keep and retain our people, we have to be competitive. And, you know, that's why we're here today, is to present options to the board and articulate these options that hopefully this will stop some of the employees leaving and going to other agencies. So option A before you is
Excuse
what?
me, though, can we compete with the private sector?
Can you compete with the private sector?
Yeah, with some of this stuff that.
I'm going to say you're never going to compete with the private sector because, as the chairman
that's
alluded
what
to
I
with the hospitals, quite honestly, the hospitals are paying paramedics $70,000 to work 36 hours a week. And as he said, in a climate controlled atmosphere. But your counties that surround you are paying, Lumpkin's paying $19 an hour for firefighter paramedics right now. We pay $16.27. You know, for Scythe, again, over 50,000 for their medics. Hall County just last week pushed out a big new $10,000 incentive for their firefighter paramedics. And these are all counties that border us. I mean, your employees are not driving an hour away. You know, they're driving another 10 or 15 minutes once every third day. And so as your chief, I'm obligated to tell you that we're losing employees. And at some point, it's impacting service delivery. And it's
And is
impacting
it
service
all
delivery.
about money? We've tried to, do benefits and retirement, kind of roll
Well,
it together. But is it wound up to, it is just money?
it's money, but the government, we kind of backed ourselves into this corner a long time ago. And it's not anything to do with any board or anything else. When we went to a 401 pension fund, you made pensions portable. So that means I can work here for 5 to 10 years, take my pension for $2 more an hour down the road and transfer it. I can go to that department. I can work another 5 or 10 years with that portable pension and go somewhere else. And that was the substance behind a defined benefit pension plan. And I know we're kind of, chasing that noodle and rabbit down a hole, but it is what it is as far as that goes. But that's just,
We continue, to Commissioner
Hold on. Go ahead.
Fawcett's point. It seems like we continue to try to do the same thing over and over. We have to change the paradigm. We have to change the way that we look at these problems. And I don't have the answer, but we continue. I could probably set my clock every 6 months. You're back up here, the sheriff's back up here with the same conversation. And and I agree, it's probably a problem. It's definitely a problem beyond our borders, but I think we get, and maybe you have tried to, I'm sure you rack your brain at night trying to come up with different ideas and different ways to address the situation. But it's just a repetitive thing that, we're on a merry-go-round that we never get off. And so I don't know if we're looking at different communicating, or you're part of associations, I'm sure, in the HR side, as well as your side and other counties. Is any county out there doing something that's actually working? Or are they all in the same situation?
it truly,
They've, just like you said, Lumpkin and Hall, we've nickeled and dimed this thing over the years. We gave them a 5% raise, which was 50 cents, when everybody else was getting $2.50.
But as soon as we do it, then they're going to do it.
No, I think but Lumpkin's at 19, we're at 16. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
I think one of the things too, you have to weigh into the whole thing is supply versus demand. The supply is low when it comes to paramedics. And as the chief said, you're looking at 12 to 18 months to be qualified. So, supply is low nationwide. And a lot of it has to do with the job itself. The job is very demanding. And I would imagine that over the past 12 months of COVID, that there have been even large numbers, can't say this to be a fact, but numbers of people who've left the profession based on what they've had to deal with. And so we've had this conversation when I was director with State Office of EMS over and over and over again. There's got to be a better system of being able to provide paramedics, or the number of paramedics coming out of schools to counties. What you have, and Chief Thompson can tell you this, if I go over to Lanier Tech right now and they're having a paramedic school, there is nobody in that class that is available for employment. They already have a job. There's not a single person in that 30-person class that is looking for work. They have a job. So it goes back to a lot of what he just said in reference to growing your own. You almost have to have a system to grow our own people out of the people that we have. He can hire firefighter EMTs all day long, because when they have those classes, all those people don't have a job. They don't all have jobs already. But paramedics already have a job. When I went, and I'll just use this as an example, and goes all the way back to 1985, and this has been going on forever, because I have fought this fight for years. In 1985, we had to ride at Grady, we had to ride at DeKalb, we had to ride at Gwinnett as part of the training. First thing that they did, every place that I went was took me to the chief. Here, do you want to work for us? Sign on today. I didn't even have a license. Sign on today. And I told them then that I already had a job, which I did. Had one here, and I was glad to keep the one that I had. But I could have left Dawson County then too, for a lot more money, because they had more money than we did, but that wasn't my style. But the battle is numbers. The battle is numbers. Now, if they were as a large contingency of paramedics out in the state of Georgia, he wouldn't be standing there today, because he'd have applications that he could look through and go, okay, I'll take this one and this one and this one and this one. And they don't work that way. It used to be that way. We used to have bigger numbers than we have to use now, but you don't. But that was before the hospitals started rating the paramedics. Now they take a lot of them because they can pay them, even though they're paying them well, they're not paying them what they pay a nurse, but they can do the same job. So they say, okay, let's see, I can save $5 an hour here. Chief Thompson can do that job just like I'm paying that $30 nurse to do that job. So I'll pay him $25. So it has been a cycle. It is a cycle. It's going to continue to be a cycle. And the best we can do is to be competitive and then grow from within, I think. I think he's on the right track, trying to grow from within. But we got to try to keep what we got.
Excuse me. How long is paramedic school? How long?
It varies. It's
It
anywhere
does?
from about 13 months to about 18 months. So even if y'all approve us this funding and I give it to employee A tomorrow,
Mhm.
it's a year from now before we see our dividends on this, on our return on investment. And that's just, unfortunately,
And what's the cost? What's the total cost?
it depends on, so there's 3 programs that are operating within close proximity of us that our people would look at. Those programs start anywhere of about $4,000. And Lanier Tech's upwards of $8,000. So, they're pretty expensive programs, but again, it's an investment. It's an investment in the employee, who is in turn an investment in the community by being able to serve and provide us that level. Because if not,
And these people they're paying it themselves.
If they go, yeah.
Yeah, if they go, they're paying it themselves.
right now,
Yeah.
if they go
So-
themselves, they pay it themselves, whereas,
So you're wanting to give them 5,000.
well, and part of the contract, it says that the employee will attempt to obtain Pell Grants, Hope Grants, items of that nature. And let's just say that employee A does that and he or she, their paramedic school's $7,000, and they're able to get enough grants and items of that nature to offset that cost down to 3,000. Well, then, as the chairman kind of alluded to, well, for that employee, we would offer them a $3,000 scholarship
Mhm.
to be able to offset that cost. So it kind of depends, it's kind of shaking the noodles up a little bit and everything, but it just really depends on out there.
I don't mean to be like, this is so serious. I don't know. I know it. I know it is so serious, and I just don't know what it takes to keep people. And that's why I've got to depend on what you're saying.
And it's a bigger
It's so
struggle than that.
serious.
I mean, everything that, and when I finish, really, it's going to boil down to, what service do we want to continue?
Mhm.
Other questions in reference to that? All right, go ahead.
You good?
You ready?
You're on B. You're
I'm not
right.
sure if I jumped on option A.
Didn't
Option
know- well,
A,
that- Did you do option?
He hadn't
A?
yet.
Okay,
I
sorry.
hadn't got A yet.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Option A is a targeted approach to incentivize those medics who are riding the med unit. So with that, when they are assigned to that medical transport unit, they will receive a $2 an hour stipend to be on that med unit. If they're not, and they're riding the fire truck that day, they will not receive that stipend. So Vicky and I kind of worked on this and before she went out of town. And what you have before you is kind of a pretty good estimate. It's not a max. Basically, you have to look at, we would have about 4 medics a day on the 4 med units who would be eligible for that $2 an hour raise. So with that, you can see we've added in the FICA, we've added in, if they max out the defined contribution, and believe it or not, we still have people who are not maxing out the 5%. But with that, you're looking at, pretty much your max cost there on option A. B is a 10% for your paramedics. It's a targeted approach again to offset those medics, to make it more competitive. So your paramedics will stop leaving Dawson County for other municipalities. I have in my hand here, I've redacted the name, a job offer for a paramedic right now at $17.51 and $3 an hour more when they're riding the med unit. So if they're on the med unit, he or she will be making roughly $20.51 an hour to ride that med unit. Option C is a bonus. You can give full-time medics $8,000 a year bonus. Part-time medics would receive $4,000 so long as they work a minimum of 600 hours during the course of the year. In closing, I would ask and recommend that the board approve us the educational incentive for $15,000 to be applied to the EMS training budget. And I would recommend that we go with option A, which is the $2 an hour stipend for medics when they're riding the med unit. And with that, I will answer any questions that you may have.
I guess a question on that,
Go ahead.
on the A. So right now, you've got 2 stations, or 3, how many stations you got ALS engines?
2, station
If
7
3
and
am-
6.
if 3 ambulances out of the county and you put up a reserve ambulance, you got that paramedic jumps on there, who's gonna keep up? So now he's on ambulance.
Mhm.
I mean,
Correct.
I'd rather see us get competitive and pay all the paramedics, because it's gonna be a headache for your battalion chief to say, well, he rode for 30 minutes.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he was off 15 minutes. He just got back on running a 2-hour call. Now he's back. And somebody called out sick. Now he's got to run over and get back on another ambulance. And that'd be a headache.
No doubt. There's a lot of.
HR would
bookkeeping
hate you.
There's no.
But, just let's get competitive with our, like I said, quick nickel and diamond it, go ahead and get it at the 19 and pay the people to go to class and get them certified. That's my opinion on it.
What is the cost? Option B is 10%, but you said we're at, how much are we an hour?
16, that's not even,
So that's $1.60 more. So,
we're still under.
so.
You're
yeah,
at
I mean,
$17.90 for starting paramedic at 10%.
So
If you went to a
so at 10%,
12%,
it's 153. And you're talking, you need to go
If
to.
you went to a 12%, that would move it to 1822. And if you did 15%, that would move the starting pay to 1871.
You really need to do,
And at 15%, that would basically increase the budget by about $281,917. That include the FICA and the contributions. If you were at 12.5%, it's going to roughly move it to about 225.
but you're still under 19.
You're still under 19.
What's it cost to go to 19?
I'd have to run the number. About,
What'd you say
probably
we're
going to be
at?
about
17 what?
17%. I
What'd you
imagine 17%.
We're now, what's
15% puts you at 1871,
base pay for paramedics?
1627.
1627.
So what's the difference in percentage there?
$2.73.
To turn that into
Get to
percentage.
19, so then you gotta turn around.
Divide 16, whatever we're paying now into 19, and that should give you the percentage.
Yeah.
Somebody's over there working the calculator. Good job.
15.
I mean, the incentive's good, but if you were a large department where, you know, people step up and ride the seat or step up and be a charge of the med unit or paramedic, it'd probably be a little bit easier to keep up to. I mean, you could do incentive if they was working what they call out of class, they stepped up. Pay it at the end of the year as a bonus. Be a little bit easier to keep up with, but I mean, like I said, we've fought this battle for, like Billy said, ever since he's been here. And I just think we need to get competitive with our, at least people next to us. That's just my opinion on it.
$300,000 to get up to 19. What other,
There's a couple of options you can look at it as a board. If you wanted to address, as the chief said, option A, because those people are riding the med unit and there is more work to riding the med unit than there is to work to riding the engine, because the med unit's going to transport, they're gone longer, they're doing more stuff. Whoever's on the engine is going to go back to the house and be there unless they get another call. So you have the ability, you could address that now if you so desired, and then take a look at a bigger and larger step in the budget process. If that's something you wanted to consider as well. But you have lots of options you could take and look at in reference to those, in reference to funding.
I mean, and this is just talking about, I mean, we're looking at one singular issue. I mean, we have another issue of number of units to begin with. And so, I mean,
That's the next presentation.
yeah, and that's what I'm talking about is, again, we can't look at this just in a silo where we say, you know, go to 19 is 300 grand, and then you're going to turn around in 5 minutes and say, we need another whole crew, which is going to be another full, I mean, that's from 0 up to 19. And so that's, you know, you're standing up a whole number unit, which is another $300,000-$400,000.
Well, that's not what he's fixing to present, but
No, that's not.
that's not
We're
it. He's
talking
just
about
talking about just an ambulance
An ambulance
itself,
to keep on the road.
just a vehicle.
We got the people put
Which,
in right
but you
now.
need more people. I mean, in general, because you keep saying,
This is
Well, we
just
will.
replacing a ambulance.
If
We have the positions today to do the 4 trucks that we want to do if they were filled.
we were to
Okay.
fill all
If they
vacancies,
were filled.
The next one's just
Station
about,
6 would go from
You're replacing.
2 people.
not buying another one. I mean, it's buying another one, but not standing up the.
No, not a whole
not
thing, no.
Staffing it.
No,
Okay.
he wasn't gonna hit you twice.
Yeah, he'll wait till next week.
all right. Any other questions in reference to that
Brain's all
presentation there?
noodled up right now.
Do you still stick with option A? Is that?
Well, again, I wanted to give you the board options for exactly what you all have done this evening, and that's discuss it. And I'm sure that once we close the door tonight, there'll be more discussion. What would benefit the employees more? Obviously, moving to the $19 an hour would benefit the employees more day in and day out. Okay. But as your chief and as a citizen, I'm mindful of the checkbook as well. I get it. But public safety is an investment. And every citizen in this county and every visitor to this county deserves to have a level of safety. Police and fire.
And we go back to the same thing, training, being a training ground. And then they go off somewhere else.
And that's kind of, you know, when we talked about the contract,
Mhm,
you know, that's to
Mhm.
kind of slow that process down, hopefully.
mhm.
And then we move that hourly rate up to be able to retain. You can't have one without having the other.
Mhm,
It's,
Mhm.
they're married together.
mhm.
You have to have a solid recruitment program And then you've got to be able to retain them when you get them in there.
Well, if you look at, well, we have 6 vacancies now or 7,
6.
6 full-time vacancies today of paramedics. And you've got a $12,500 cost to hire somebody
That's right.
and to get them going and put them on the road. So if you retain people and you've cut the cost by that 70-something thousand of 6 times 12, because you're not paying that cost anymore. So you've lowered what might be 300,000 down to 250 if you can work it to where retention is working and where they're staying. And I think, and that's still going to be iffy. Obviously, when you deal with $19 an hour, we're not going to lose anybody to Lumpkin. But we still got to battle the $25 hospital. We still got to battle Johns Creek or some places like that down that way that pay more. Still got to battle your private EMS services that are looking for paramedics as well. There's a lot of factors associated with retention. And some of it's money, as we've talked about many times. Some of it's retirement, some of it's insurance, some of it's just the pure fact that we are asking people to do 2 jobs, be trained in 2 specific things, fire and EMS, which is obviously a financial benefit to our citizens for one person to be able to do 2 things. But that's not what's going on at the private EMS service. They're doing 1 job and 1 job only and having to keep up 1 certification. Same thing for a paramedic that goes to the hospital or goes to any other private sector job. So there's a lot of paradigms that are going on for counties. And as Chief Thompson said, we are not in this thing by ourselves, or we could fix it. But as Tim said, we got to also be competitive. And that is one of the best ways, obviously, to try to retain. Could Chief Thompson tell you today that if we went to $19 an hour, that Lumpkin won't go to 21? No, he can't. And no one in this room can tell you that, because it's happened every single time, because it is a battle for people. And it will always be a battle for people. When demand outweighs supply, and as desperately as it is in the state of Georgia for paramedics, then it's going to be a continuous battle. So the great thing about what I think he's brought, and we may want to invest even more money into, is the educational piece of it, so that we can grow from within. Years ago, that's what Dawson County did. They growed their own. They growed their own paramedics. That's how I became a paramedic. As an EMT, they said, we got to have more people. Got to have more people. So, you know, and that's biting the bullet a lot, because that person's gone. I mean, the class, I went to class 3 days a week, 8 hours a day, become a paramedic. So I was gone the whole 8-hour class, the drive over, the drive back, and come back and worked on a lot of those days, because they had to have somebody. And that's kind of dedication that you're going to have, of people who will sign in to Chief Thompson saying, we will help you get that education to be a paramedic, to help your community, to work here, and be a part of this community.
How many hours did you say paramedic had to get
for-
annually?
So for our dual trained personnel, on their firefighter certifications alone, just a firefighter
Okay,
has to have over 240. If they're an officer, they have to have additional 20 hours of officer level training. If they're a driver, they have to have driver specific training on top of that. And then if they're EMTs and paramedics, they've got to have about another 40 hours So again,
On
just in,
top of the 240 or the 260.
correct.
Oh, my
So
word.
we're looking at 300 hours plus annually for all of our personnel to have to maintain their certifications, those dual
Mhm.
certifications. So, you know, it's a lot.
Oh, it is.
And I'll
But you're
say,
highly trained.
yes,
You're highly trained people. that-
And I
that
will
need
tell you-
paying for what you know.
When you talked about, I mean, we had to mention when they opened up Station 8, the ISO, they
Yeah.
also look at that. They look at the training hours. So if
Oh,
they
they
don't get the
do?
training hours, we lose those points.
lose that points.
Oh,
So they look
Training's
at
a
that
huge-
also.
Training's a,
Well, and one of the things too,
Oh.
that people need to take a serious look at and understand when it comes to training is we're offering that in-house. We're doing that ourselves. So that cost is not overly bearing to the taxpayer because he has a training officer and the people at Station 7.
Oh, yeah,
So
uh-huh.
we're doing a lot of that ourselves.
Yeah.
So when we look at these other things, if you look at everything that's going on, you'll see we're saving money here. We got to spend money here
Mhm.
to make that balance out. And the same thing in recruitment. If you have people that are staying, then you're not spending $12,500 a year on somebody else trying to get them up to par. Another thing too that you have to consider, and what's important to understand is that if I am Danny's training officer and I'm training Tim, then I have two people on the payroll that are moving at about a half pace of what I could do myself because I'm already trained.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yes.
and that's not negative to Tim because Tim's got to learn.
Yes.
So we're both getting paid at half pace.
Mhm.
So retention pays itself
Yes.
back in the long run if you can make it work. And that's
I'm
my
gonna- I'm
soapbox.
gonna brag on our men and women in our EMS service. We have some of the best paramedics in the state. We offer some EMS, Chief Lee and Chief Dooley do one fantastic job with our personnel and our medics. I put them against anybody in the state. Our medical protocols, if you have a medical emergency or traumatic event, you want it to occur in Dawson County. As I assure you, the medicines that we carry on our med units are far superior than those that border us. The level of progression, the equipment that we have and we maintain here, it's top notch. We're in the elite group. And so you can be thankful for your men and women out there that are on those med units, because I tell you, they're some of the best in the state. So I'm proud of each and every one of them.
On our ramen noodle budget, we got good stuff.
Got to watch those Roman noodles though. They'll be getting
Don't do this word.
little
today,
storm, so.
please.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll reiterate what Chief says. I mean, for years, we provide quality.
Oh, I know. Well,
The
I mean,
care
I've
that
been
we
on the
provide-
receiving end of it.
The
and-
care that we provide to our citizens is very much quality. The medical standing orders that they have and they go by are top notch.
Mhm.
And that's not just something that just happenstance. It's because you got good quality people that our medical advisor trusts,
Mhm.
because it's his license that we work off of and on those calls outside. Because when you have a doctor that's allowing that paramedic to give very strong medications that make difference between dying and not dying without him being on the phone, you've made great strides, because I can tell you, back when I first started, if you wanted to start something as simple as an IV, you had to get on the phone. We're way beyond those categories today.
And I think in the past, I've asked the question of both Chairman Thurman as well as you, the reason why we as a county don't necessarily want to go down the path of private option is because of our level of care. I
That's
mean,
right.
it's costing us more, but we also deliver a higher level of care versus going to privatize. Saves you money, but you lose control of it.
Those words have never been more true.
Mhm.
If you brought in a private ambulance service today, you don't control those employees. You have a contract And, you know, we don't really know where that contract's going to land. How much is it going to cost you? You don't know till you release an RFP to see what it comes back. You know, a single med unit may cost you $200,000. So to have the 4 med units, you're up to that. And I can tell you that most private services, if you don't add into the contract, some of those medical interventions that I talked about, the various medications that are in there, they're going to run with the state minimum. Also,
So it's an additional charge.
it
Oh,
is,
yeah.
and they charge for everything.
Oh,
And you
Well-
gotta put in that contract response time because they don't make, the private ambulance don't make their money on emergency calls.
They're for profit.
They make their money on hospital calls, doctor's office calls, dialysis calls,
mhm.
the cath lab
Doctor office
calls.
transport.
And so most of those units are gonna be tied up somewhere. So that's a big thing in the contract is how long is it gonna take you to get to my citizens on emergency?
Mhm.
And it
'Cause
boils
they
down
might not
to
be here.
Mhm.
it's-
Because they're
it's
making money somewhere.
quality of care versus income,
Mhm.
what it boils down to.
Mhm.
And here we are looking at quality of care.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Chief Thompson on this item? Okay, we'll move on up. Presentation of ambulance purchase request. Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board, this one will be a little bit more straightforward and should be a lot easier on us. Back in 2018, the Dawson County Board of Commissioners reinstituted the impact fees. Obviously, the purpose of these fees are to offset those costs of services that are impacted with our expanding growth. Dawson County, as you've heard me speak about, we currently have 5 ambulances in the county. Those are 3 2016 models and 2 2017 models. We are currently seeing escalating annual maintenance cost in these units, coupled with an increase out of service time with these units, getting parts and shipping is a whole nother conversation right now. COVID has really turned that around, but I won't get on my soapbox for that one. To kind of put in perspective where we sit mileage wise, I have 1 med unit that's over 180,000 miles right now. I have another med unit that's rapidly approaching 140, and I have the remaining of my fleet is over 130,000 miles. So what we're requesting of the board is to be able to use some of the impact fee money that we have been able to collect. We met with our ambulance vendor. We spec'd out a med unit and the equipment to go with it. That price comes in at $395,294. That vendor is 10-8 Fire, and we'll be using the Florida Sheriff's Association cooperative purchasing agreement if we're allowed to move forward with it. Something to kind of let the board know. Before Miss Vicky went on vacation, we've got a little over 240,000 in impact fee money sitting there. And just looking at it roughly, we get annually about 105, 120 from impact fee money. So while I've, from a formality standpoint, requesting 155 to bridge the gap of the cost there, we're not going to pay it till we receive the unit. It's a 12-month turnaround. There are no demos like the fire truck. So if you all give me the thumbs up today to be able to move forward with getting this ordered, we're not going to see that med unit till this time next year. So we're still going to have to try to keep our fleet of 5 going. We're still going to have those maintenance costs. And there's been times when we have dropped down to 3 and limping one of those to keep it going. Shannon and Scotty do a fantastic job of keeping the fleet going, but when they get 130, 140, 180, you're going to have mechanical issues out of them. So with that, like I said, realistically, by the time the payment comes around next year to actually make that payment, we're probably going to have over 350. So really you're talking about $45,000 roughly to come out of fund balance. So
Plus
like
we
I
have
said,
some money in the impact and
Splosh.
Splosh 7 for families is too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We had.
Yeah.
You do.
That's
We
the
do.
question I want to ask is, takes 12 months. We're putting roughly how many miles a year? 35,000?
About 35,000.
So we'll be over 200 something thousand on one, about another, the other one will be back up to the 180. Talking to Shannon, you had two with engine problems, turbos.
I got steering box issues.
Steering
right-
box.
Right now.
I mean, I'd love to see the board, I mean, since we're not gonna have to make a payment in 12 months, using impact fees and Splosh to look at possibly ordering two, because we're gonna be, two of them's gonna be over the mileage. I mean, I wouldn't want somebody taking a chance of a 200,000 mile truck coming to get me and take me to the hospital.
And our rolling fleet will need to move where traditionally we've had 5. We're going to need to now sit at that 6 mark. And I'll just, whether I'm your chief and whoever sits up there in the future, just moving forward, you're going to probably have to buy a med unit a year from here on out. It's just going to be a rolling operating cost. That's going to have to be something that you're going to have to figure in there.
Why does
But
it
if we-
cost so
go ahead.
long? Not
Yeah.
cost, why does it take so long
Just.
to,
Have
I mean,
to
why
build
does
it.
it take a
They have to
year?
build.
Chassis was a big thing for a long time.
Chassis. Yeah, and in this unit here, there are no more Ram 5500 2021 chassis. They're all sold. So this has to move to a 2022. So that's,
Just up some big, all the, you think all other departments and ambulances are buying them up, buying the chassis up.
Yep.
I mean, to Tim's point, if,
Mhm.
if I would say we want them staggered, so just like our IT thing, you know,
Right.
I think we want to stagger them so they don't come all due again in X amount of time, but maybe we approve moving forward on this one now, and then we wait 6 months and go ahead and say, go ahead and build another one. And then, because I mean, we can, with Splosh, you know, we've got to build the EOC building first. And so that's going to consume 18 months of collections or whatnot. And then, well, not 18 months of collection.
A year.
Yeah, year of collections.
Well, I'd like to see what James is gonna say on this. I know he's on this list too, to talk about the impact fees.
Yeah.
And some projections, but I mean, if we wait, but if we wait, if we order this one now, wait 12 more months,
Yeah,
we're gonna be behind again.
yeah. I
We're
like
gonna
that.
be over 200,000 on several units.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be open to looking at that.
Other questions for Chief Thompson? Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Next up, we have presentation of intergovernmental agreement between City of Dawsonville and Dawson County concerning trail infrastructure for pedestrian access between Main Street Park and Library. Public Works Director David McKee. David.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I got a couple items tonight. The first of which is the intergovernmental agreement. I get to take this mask off. That's the best part of coming up here. The intergovernmental agreement between the City of Dawsonville and Dawson County. This is for a trail. The intergovernmental agreement is fairly straightforward. This is a trail. If you're familiar with the new playground at the city park, it will connect the playground over to the library. It will have a bridge structure. We've got a design, a structural design on the bridge structure. So that during the Moonshine Festival, Fire and EMS, and the bridge will be built such that Fire and EMS can get an ATV across there to get into a crowded area, as you know that it is down there. There's no cost to the county. This will be built and constructed by and managed by the city. It's just that they will be going on the county property. What I would ask is that this board table a decision on this IGA. There was, you may have saw an email floating around about some ownership as it relates to the city and the development authority, downtown development authority, I believe is what it is. They are working to convey that property back to the city. So I would request that the board review this. I'll answer any questions that you may have, but table a decision until such time that conveyance of the property is complete.
So
And then
how long do we anticipate that to be?
I can't answer that question,
Sam?
Sam, if you can.
It's supposed to be accepted by the city on April 19th.
So
So that would be, our next meeting is on the 15th.
it'll be the first meeting of May,
Yeah, May 6th. Yes, sir.
May 6th. Okay, so. Because it's not up for a vote anyway yet, so we could just push it forward.
I mean, I'm cool with voting contingent on that. I mean, we could do that. That way we don't have to wait till another meeting. If that helps. Wasn't there a timeline or a shot clock or something that they were dealing with?
I think
Seems like that
Something
email had
about
something
it,
about a
it did.
timeline or it didn't.
No,
I
I'm
believe
not
they
aware
were-
of a timeline on
I
this
thought it
IGA.
did.
No, we've been talking about this for months.
Okay.
That's up to council. If they're comfortable, then we move it forward to next week or 2 weeks.
So I guess, yeah, you certainly could move this to tonight's voting session, vote on it.
I don't think
contingent
that
on
was what he was asking.
No.
I think
We can make that decision next meeting.
next meeting and be contingent on that. Anything we did would be contingent on them getting it straightened up.
Also could do that.
It'll still be before their meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions for David?
Just want to make the board aware that there is a conveyance of property that has to change. It's a little different from what.
Will a lot of trees be
No.
cut down?
No, that is not the intent. Just enough for that. And we did discuss that. So no.
Did you? Okay, good.
Other questions? All right, let's move on to presentation of 2021 Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Safety Action Plan. David, you're doing that as well?
I will. Chairman and board, again, thank you. You know, every year we do the local maintenance improvement grant through LMIG. That's a sort of a revolving door. We have an outstanding relationship with our partners at DOT. Alexa and I got an email and a letter went to the chairman. Anytime there's extra funds, they reach out to different counties and they call it a safety LMIG. In this particular case, what they've elected to do this year, they gave us a call and said, hey, we have $100,000 for safety improvements and it's got to be used on very specific roads. I'll say that the biggest change from this particular safety LMIG and LMIG we had last year, we had some for striping. We could use it on any of our roads. This particular LMIG is very specific and they've listed roads that we have to use them on and what we have to do with the safety LMIG. For example, it has to be striping and raised pavement markers and signage. So we've listed a number of roads here. You'll notice there's not a project cost. And what I would ask the board is to allow us to move this forward tonight because we are on a shot clock here. And we do have a deadline of the 15th. Yes, we do meet on the 15th, but we have to have it to them by the close of business on the 15th. So I would request that we move this forward tonight. So if it's approved, and we could send that to DOT tomorrow. Again, you'll notice there's not a project cost. What I would request is that we have a motion to have the project cost of not to exceed what's listed of $149,500. What that is the $115,000 that we would get from DOT with our 30% match. We would absorb that 30% match in our current budget. We have a current standby striping contractor, which is Peak Striping. You've heard me talk about Parker Striping before. That is Peak bought out Parker, so it's still the same folks. And what we would do is Lumpkin Campground Road, Dawson Forest Road, the entire road of all of these, Kelly Bridge Road, again, the reason why there's not a project cost because some of the raised pavement markers are on Dawson Forest Road, so it wouldn't be completely replacing all of those. There are none on Kelly Bridge Road. The school zones, we would do thermo striping at the school zones along Dawson Forest Road. So we've got all of that in our standby contracting, and I would just request the board to allow us to make this application with our 30% match.
Questions for David?
Did you get to specify the roads?
I did not, no.
I don't have
So-
to, how
so
how
what-
can somebody,
What the TMC is the agency in Atlanta that work, the DOT, they constantly watch the crash data. And you've heard me talk about the
Oh.
pneumetric system that DOT uses. They constantly watch crash data. So they use crash data and the roads that they've provided have higher rates of crashes.
okay.
And they're making the determination that it's striping. We've all been down those roads and
Mhm.
we've all heard from citizens on 136 when they did the fog line work. The striping is very big in low light and rain. For example, we talked about doing thermo striping between the roundabout and 400. There's a lot of lanes there, so no, we did not get to specify that. We were given the roads. And if we get done with this and we still have $30,000 or $20,000, then they will give us additional roads that we can use the money on. That's why I'm asking the board not to exceed. So we're not dead tied to just doing this. We're going to do as much as we can for the money that they're willing to give us. And we have consistently done that, which is why they reach out to us and give us that money.
Well, that explains, I thought, how in the world can somebody tell us which roads that we need to do anything with? So crashes, I get it now.
Strictly crash day.
Yeah, okay.
Government, they try to tell us all the time what to do.
I know it. That's the way it is.
Other questions for David?
At least this time they're giving us money to do it. though.
Yeah.
You good with moving that forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, David. Next up, we have presentation of board appointments. Library Board, Don Cargile is a reappointment. Term would be April 2021 through June 2024. And then we have Planning Commission. This is my appointment, Steve Sanvey, who's here. He'd be replacing Emery Dooley. That term would be April 2021 through December 24. And I would request that the board, that we move this Planning Commission appointment for a vote tonight so that he can get the information he needs to be seated at their next meeting, which is the 20th. And that would give Jameson plenty of time to provide him with that information. So if that's all right with you, I would request we move that particular board appointment to vote on tonight. Okay. Next up, we have discussion of impact fees. Planning and Development Director, Jameson Kinley. Jameson, come on up.
Before he starts, I would like to thank you for coming. I like to eyeball the people. Appreciate that.
All right. Ready to talk about impact fees. So at the request of the board, the Planning and Development presents an update to the impact fees every 6 months. Impact fees are defined as charges levied by local governments on new developments in order to pay a proportionate share of capital costs for providing public infrastructure to those developments. Impact fees can be used to fund capital improvement projects for fire and EMS, sheriff's office, roads, libraries, parks and rec, and the maintenance of the capital improvement element. Capital improvements are defined as improvements with a useful life of 10 years or more by new construction or other actions which increase the service capabilities of public facilities. Dawson County re-implemented impact fees in 2018 at 100% based on a study by Bill Ross and Associates. Then later in March of 2019, we reduced fire and roads to 25% based on commercial impacts and developments. To this date, since 2019, we've collected a little more than $3 million in impact fees. 2019 alone, we did 912 million or 912,000. In 2020, we did 1.4 million.
Yeah, now
He
you want 4
wishes.
ambulances.
And then and then this year to date, we have already collected close to $300,000 in impact fees. So as you can see, as development grows and as we grow in Dawson County, we collect more impact fees. Those impact fees are collected at the building permit stage through my department. And I will start the discussion there. That's really meant to be an introduction as to getting into the discussion of impact fees, and I'll answer any questions.
Questions for Jameson?
Projected, and I'll ask you this question, what zonings and land disturbance, things like that. I know we can't hold you to how many they're gonna build a year, but how many applications, I guess, it's for the number of homes we're projected to get.
So right now all right, so when you talked about a development, it goes through a civil plan review before it gets to the building permit stage. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 developments through civil stage that are going to be about 1,100 rooftops, probably over the next 3 years. We also have more developments that are in civil review right now, which have an additional 720 rooftops. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we're talking at $2,500 for each rooftop. It'd be about $6 million. So that's just the ones that we have in the queue right now. We still have, 2 potential rezonings that are tabled at the zoning stage, and we still have 3 other developments that are kind of in the talks, but really we have to wait on, see, they might submit that this year, they might submit that, next year or maybe never. So that's the ones we got at the table right now.
Other questions for Jameson? All right. Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the county manager report. David.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. March 23rd, vaccine clinic at Rock Creek Park administered 1,177 COVID-19 vaccines. If you recall, this clinic was a partnership between Northside Forsyth Hospital, Good Shepherd Clinic, and our Emergency Services Department. So again, they serviced 1,177 citizens. Finance, Public Works, and EMA have worked to submit through FEMA the reimbursement of $114,477.71 for Hurricane Zeta that came through, which occurred back in October. So that submittal has been done. We had a great grand opening and ribbon cutting this afternoon for the Pauline Stevens Ivy Senior Center. I thank all those who attended, as well as the Senior Services Director, Dawn Johnson, and her staff. I do want to recognize Laura Fulcher for her hard work and beautiful center display of that new facility. I think it really just kicked off the grand opening as you walked into the open area there. So the senior centers, the seniors were walking away with lots of cookies and cupcakes, no soup and noodles, but by golly, they were eating the cakes and candy. So that was really a great turnout today. I think we probably had over 100 people there. So it was really great. There is an old saying that there's nothing greater than a mountain, but a person's commitment to move one. And so I commend the commission, our staff, and everyone who had a hand in moving that mountain forward. I know since I got here in 2005, it's always been on the radar, and today was a reality. So it's a facility that will endear all ages for years to come. And so I commend the commission for moving forward on that. And answer any questions you may have.
Questions of the county manager?
Do we have our key indicator report?
It doesn't, well,
Is that the next one? Okay.
yeah.
That'd be the next.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. County attorney report.
Nothing to report. Thanks.
We do have need for an executive session, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that would be for potential litigation.
I believe the executive will be after the voting.
I know,
session.
but
Oh, yeah.
I'm asking you now.
Yes, potential litigation.
Okay. All right. So we will remember that and write that down so that we can go into that afterwards. All right. That's all we have in our work session for today. We want to thank everyone for their attendance. We will take just a few minutes to get everything back in order. Then we'll move into our voting sessions. Thanks for those who are here, and thanks for everyone who is listening online. Thank you.